Today's top stories include Senate Bill 12, which opposes student clubs based on sexual orientation or gender identity. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Also, the 89th Texas Legislative session has come to a close. We will discuss what you need to know with University of Houston political science professor and party politics co-host Jeronimo Cortina.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, Texas Monthly's Daniel Vaughn breaks down the magazine's list of the top 50 barbecue joints, which includes some Houston establishments.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The investigation continues a day after a brutal attack on a peaceful march in Boulder, Colorado. Protesters were calling for the release of Israeli hostages in Gaza. During the event, a man attacked the demonstrators with a flamethrower and Molotov cocktail, injuring 8 people. Megan Burley with Colorado Public Radio reports Jewish leaders, lawmakers, and advocacy groups are calling it a clear act of terrorism.
Colorado's Attorney General called it a hate crime. Our governor, who's Jewish, noted that it occurred hours before the start of the Jewish holiday of Shavuot. And for some of the people we talked to in the Jewish community, what we really heard was this feeling that they wanted to say they were surprised by what happened, but after the killing of Israeli embassy workers in D.C. last month and the attack on the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, they just weren't.
Megan Burley of Colorado Public Radio reporting. Facebook and Instagram owner Meta is planning to automate its efforts to review its products for risks, including to the privacy of its users. NPR's Shannon Bond reports Meta is moving some work toward artificial intelligence rather than relying on humans.
For years, when Meta launched new features and products, human reviewers evaluated possible risks to privacy, to teen users, to the prevalence of toxic content. Now the company aims to automate up to 90% of risk assessments using a system powered by artificial intelligence, according to internal documents obtained by NPR. The change will allow product developers to release app updates and features more quickly. Meta says only, quote, low-risk decisions are being automated. But the internal documents reviewed by NPR show that Meta is considering automating reviews for sensitive areas, including AI safety and youth risk. Shannon Bond, NPR News.
Meta is a financial supporter of NPR. The United Nations says it's unacceptable that Palestinians are risking their lives for food. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says it has delivered 6 million meals in its first week in operations in southern Gaza and has denied reports of chaos and shootings near its distribution sites. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, though, says he was appalled by reports that some Palestinians were killed trying to reach one of those sites on Sunday. He's calling for an immediate and independent investigation and reminding Israel that it has, quote, clear obligations to facilitate aid into Gaza. The UN is not taking part in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The U.S. says the UN is wrong to criticize the foundation, which it says is trying to make sure Hamas doesn't benefit from aid. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. The 2 men charged with killing a 12-year-old girl in the Houston area last year in a case that got national attention is due back in court today. Local authorities say Venezuelan nationals Johan Jose Martinez Rangel and Franklin Pena are also charged with sexually assaulting Jocelyn Nungaray in addition to capital murder. Harris County's former district attorney, Kim Ogg, announced at the end of last year that she was seeking the death penalty for the pair who are currently being held in the Harris County jail. Investigators believe Nungaray snuck out of her home the night before her body was found under a bridge. Air taxis are getting closer to becoming a reality in Houston. News 88.7's Justin Dowd has an update from the director of the Houston Airport System.
Jim Cesniak calls them eVTOLs, or electric vertical takeoff or landing vehicles. Their goal is to ferry passengers to and from Houston destinations in the near future. including Houston's spaceport.
Being able to jump on the eVTOL, fly right to Bush, and jump on the plane and go to Europe, that's an attractive service that we offer that our competing spaceports can't.
He told City Council initial proposals include landing locations downtown, in the Energy Corridor, and at Houston airports. Companies are angling for FAA certification by 2026. Demonstration flights could come as soon as next summer. I'm Justin Dowd, News 88.7.
A Galveston teacher who blasted off into space over the weekend says she is ready to go again.
If I am going to be truly honest, I will go on that capsule again right away, and I will love to go to the station.
Amy Medina Jorge is a science teacher at the Odyssey Academy in Galveston. She was one of the passengers aboard the Blue Origin spacecraft that blasted off from West Texas. Her seat was sponsored by a Mexican company to help boost Hispanic representation in STEM education. It's 85 degrees. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, working to help protect small businesses and the owners that run them, offering customizable coverages to salons, accounting firms, tradespeople, and more. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello, Frank.
It's Monday.
It is Monday.
It is Monday.
How did we end up here?
Well, you see,
What's
after
happening?
Sunday, it traditionally becomes Monday.
Yeah, how
and
was
even
your-
if you're not ready for it,
It's coming.
How was your weekend?
Mine was wonderful.
Yeah.
I really had. We had Ana Maria Martinez on the show last week, and then here's my plug again. And the new Interviews is out, and she's on YouTube if you want to look at it. So Saturday night, she had her concert, her show at the Hobby Center. It was delightful, and she is such a wonderful talent. To hear her sing was just beautiful. Also went to a wedding.
I love it.
It was a very nice weekend. How about you guys? Excuse me, that's too Eastern. I mean, how about you folks?
How about you guys, huh?
How about y'all?
How about y'all? My weekend was nice. I have been getting some of the most lovely garden emails. And I am like, keep them coming. I'm trying to think, what other tips and tricks do I need? I got some fabulous ones. And so I'm very excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoyed the pool yesterday.
You know, it was a nice weekend for weather, wasn't it?
It
felt
was.
pretty good. We had a few storms right here again, but most of it was to the north of Houston. And today's going to be a dry day, a little warm.
Yeah.
Went to a lovely graduation party on Saturday afternoon.
Love it.
And had a great dinner Saturday night. Toca Madera. Have you been to Toca Madera?
Yes.
It's sort of idiomatic for knock on wood in Spanish.
Toca madera.
Toca Madera.
That's right.
It's pretty nice right there on Allen Parkway. And then yesterday had a wonderful birthday for my friend Tim.
Oh, great.
nice.
So a productive weekend. I keep thinking I'm going to get out in the garage and clean, and it keeps being too hot. Is there going to be anything cool you see
Nope.
coming up?
No.
Nope. Wait till
No.
a storm comes through and then go in.
I was going to say, though,
Yes,
I feel like lately the storms that have been rolling in is so. I was actually talking about this yesterday. It is so iconic Houston, that like summer storm that comes through. I love it.
Seems like 30 or 40 years ago, they would come through like clockwork every afternoon.
Yep.
You could just count on a storm, and then things began to change a little bit. But
Well, a storm that came to an end, or I should say is wrapping up, is the Texas Legislative session. We're spending a lot of time on that on today's show. We're going to have, you know him from Party Politics. Jeronimo Cortina is going to be with us to dissect what happened. And also a legislator wrapping up her first session in the Texas Legislature will be joining us. And that's coming up later in the show. But we want to start off with some of our headlines. Usually I ask you to start, but you got to guess with your segment. So we're going to wait a second until she's with us. So while we're doing that, I'm going to jump to my story.
Right. Well, I do want to say, what the topic is essentially. It's breaking news. Breaking news out of Austin. Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath says the state takeover of Houston ISD will continue for 2 more years before the TEA releases a timeline for the transition back to elected board members. We will be speaking with one of the reporters that is doing a lot of coverage of this in a little bit. And she actually spoke with Mike Morath, so we're trying to get her on right now. But Ernie.
All right, so we're going to go once again back to the Texas House. I feel like I'm the Texas House reporter on our panel.
You kind of are.
Democrats took to the floor of the Texas House on Saturday to label a ban on clubs that support gay teens as the work of quote-unquote monsters, and says the ban endangers children and strips them of their dignity. Democratic representatives grew emotional in opposition to the bill that would ban K-12 student clubs focused on sexuality and gender identity. Senate Bill 12, authored by Senator Brandon Creighton, won final legislative passage Saturday after lawmakers in both chambers adopted the conference committee report that specifically clarified that schools will be banned from authorizing or sponsoring student clubs based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Backers proclaim that the bill enshrines a parent's rights and puts the parent not just at the table, but at the head of the table where the children's best interests are decided. They also targeted diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, policies, claiming that they project ideologies on students and put too much focus on race, sexuality, and gender identity instead of the quality of education. Lot there, but give us your thoughts on Senate Bill 12, 713-440-8870. I'm putting the number out there and the topic out there, so if you're interested, get on the line and call us right now, and then we'll discuss. But right now, your guest has arrived.
That's
Celeste.
right. So, like I said earlier, the Texas Education Agency Commissioner, Mike Morath, has said the state takeover of HISD will continue for 2 more years. Joining us now is Houston Chronicle senior Houston ISD reporter, Megan Menchaca, who actually spoke with Commissioner Mike Morath. And welcome, Megan, to Hello Houston.
So much for having me.
So was this at all surprising that the takeover would be extended, and I believe it's till June 1st of 2027?
I would say no. And the reason I say that is because the TEA commissioner came to Houston a couple of weeks ago for a visit of 3 HISD schools. And on that tour, he spoke in a press conference to the media where he gave very strong praise of the reforms and changes that HISD state-appointed superintendent Mike Miles has made in the district over the past 2 years. And while he didn't explicitly confirm that the state takeover would be renewed, he did that was sort of an indication that he likes the direction the district is going. And so I don't think many people were surprised to see when he made the formal announcement that we're going to continue the state-appointed leadership for 2 years. What was surprising and what several community members did not expect was for him to remove 4 of the appointed board members 2 years into their service and replace them with 4 new appointees.
Did he give any reason as to why they were being removed?
I asked him directly about that, and he sort of said, basically, we just want to change up the board. We want fresh perspectives, representative perspectives. And I asked him, is this in any way related to maybe potential criticism of the superintendent, pushback? And he said, not at all. We just want, some representatives, people who are going to keep us, going in the same direction of the district. It's not really clear. He wouldn't really say explicitly why they were being removed. I spoke to the elected trustee board president about why she thought they were being removed. And she said it's because they're the ones asking questions. They're the ones pushing back a little bit more than the other board members. Keep in mind, almost all of the board members vote almost all the time in favor of everything proposed by them from the Miles administration. But several of the board members who have been removed have, in very few instances, voted no or maybe raised more questions than the other board members during these public board meetings.
Let me take everyone back for a moment. And my recollection when this all started was that they would evaluate as they went along. Were we expecting that this was a point where they were going to say hands off and we're moving on? Why is this surprising that they're continuing what I assumed they probably would continue as they moved through it?
Yeah, so the state law says the commissioner has to announce by the 2-year anniversary of the initial takeover, which was yesterday, whether the takeover will be renewed. So again, not surprising that he made this announcement. It's actually required by state law, so it would be actually surprising if he didn't make an announcement regarding the extension of the takeover. But again, what is surprising is the change up of 4 of the 9 board members.
Is there a criteria that they're looking at? Is there a checklist where they say, we are continuing this because we only got A and B, but C, D, E, and F still need work on? Is there anything that rationalizes how they're making their decisions?
Sure. So they named 3 exit criteria at the beginning of the takeover that the TEA was supposed to meet. And those 3 exit criteria are not to have any consecutive schools earning a failing rating from the TEA accountability A through F rating. So that's a D or F. They also said HISD needs to follow state and federal law regarding special education compliance, which they have before the takeover, a history of failing to do so repeatedly. They also said the 3rd exit criteria is improved board governance. A TEA investigation found that the previous board members had flouted state law, done various things that are unbecoming of a school board member. So the TEA said, you need to do all these 3 things before we'll let you return back to an elected school board. But the issue is that the exit criteria actually wasn't possible for the HIC to complete in 2 years. The TEA accountability ratings only come out once a year. And so only 1 year of the takeover has actually been evaluated. So even if they had done perfectly, every single student had scored 100% on all the STAR tests every year, both years, that they still would not have met the exit criteria by the deadline to renew the takeover.
Well,
so
that was my question. Can they point to where we were 2 years ago and where the improvements have been made to say, hey, this is working, we're going to extend this another 2 years because of A, B, and C is doing so beautifully?
Sure. So that the TEA commissioner, I think, has pointed to one notable fact in that the HISD before the state takeover had 121 schools earning DNF ratings, which are failing ratings. It went from 121 to 40. Or I think it's 120 to 141. And that's they basically reduced the number of failing schools by 2/3 in 1 year, which is a very significant jump.
Sure.
And so how you get there is through significant improvement on the STAR exam. So math and reading STAR, that means that students in many of these schools are earning higher math and reading scores than they were before the takeover. HISD also saw 3 schools jump from an F rating to an A rating. It's going from a C to a D, a D to a C to a B. That's a pretty significant jump for a school. Going from an F to an A in a single year is a significant improvement. The only 3 schools to do that in the whole state of Texas last year were all in HISD. So those are the things that the TEA commissioner has pointed to and said, what Mike Miles is doing is working in these schools, and we want to continue that. He's also, while STAR results haven't been released for this year yet, hinted that the district is on track to see more improvements in reading and math scores in this upcoming year as well.
You're listening to Hello Houston, and joining us now is Houston Chronicle senior Houston ISD reporter Megan Menchaca, who spoke with Texas Education Commissioner Mike Morath. You can join the conversation and ask questions at 713-440-8870. So, Megan, when we're looking at the 2-year mark, we understand it was going to be evaluated now. We've been extended. But what I find interesting is Superintendent Miles has said in the past his job is to get in and get out, and that, he wants to make changes fast. And yet here we are, we're having an extension of 2 years, and they're praising him. Did they say anything about it, that they feel like he's on the timeline that they want, even though they've extended it? Could it possibly be that this will be extended another 2 years after 2027?
So the takeover itself legally cannot be extended any longer than it has been. The maximum time for a state-appointed board is 4 years.
Okay.
And that's the maximum time before the TEA has to announce a transition timeline. So it's not going to necessarily be, June 1st, the takeover ends, June 2nd, we're back to elected trustees. The June 1st, 2027 is around when the TEA will announce the timeline back to a transition to elected board members. And that's going to be a gradual process as well. Every year, 1/3 of the elected trustees will come back on until the full elected trustee board is back in place. But I do want to say that is separate from the superintendent. The state appoints the board. They also appoint the superintendent, but Mike Miles' contract is, I would say, separate from the takeover itself. He can seek a contract extension with the board. His contract is up for renewal in 2026. So if the board approves a contract for him that goes through 2030, 2032, there's no state law stopping them from that. The state appoints the board, but the superintendent serves at the pleasure of the board.
A question about the timeline back. As they move through this into the timeline back, can they stall any of that replacement of people on the board? What if they haven't met the criteria, it should take an ugly turn in the next couple of years, and they didn't achieve what they set out to achieve? They still just hand it back over? So I'm curious about the logic behind all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a little confusing to me. Why have exit criteria if you have to end the takeover in 4 years anyway? I would say the exit criteria is more of these are the standards we want you to strive for. And the TEA did talk about the takeover is supposed to set a path to success that the elected trustees will hopefully continue, right? Even if they don't accomplish, if every school doesn't earn a consecutive, passing rating, the TEA commissioner wants to see HISD sort of lay the groundwork for improvements to continue year over year. But those 4 years, the 4 years of the appointed board, that's a state law. That's not, unless that law changes, which it's because of the way the legislature is set up is not possible. That is going to stay in place. Now, the question is how long between when the takeover ends and the transition begins will there be? That's not clearly defined in state law. So we don't really necessarily know in between when June 1st, 2027 happens and when the elected trustees will come back on.
I thought you said a third of them every year. So then that would
yes,
be 3
but
years.
They won't. June 1st is when they have to announce the transition timeline. So they could say, oh, June 1st, the transition will start in August. And once that transition timeline starts, that's when the elected trustees will slowly transition back.
So we had a text saying, and I don't know what Wheatley is. I guess it's a school. But do you have any comment on Wheatley's progress?
Sure. So along with the 3 exit criteria that I talked about, board governance, no consecutive failing ratings, and special education, the whole reason that the HISD is in the takeover to begin with is because Wheatley High School earned 7 years of consecutive failing ratings, and the state law says if that happens, the TEA is going to take over your school district, even if it's just one school in a district with 274 schools. So that one of the along with those 3 exit criteria I named, HISD also has to keep Wheatley from earning consecutive failing ratings while the takeover is in place. So good, again, the takeover is going to end in 2 years anyway, but that's one of the goals is to keep the school from earning failing ratings. The TEA actually hasn't even released any ratings while HISD has been under a state takeover. The 2024 ratings are still under pause due to a lawsuit, but the unofficial ratings show that Wheatley earned a B, which is a much better score than the failing ratings they had been earning before the takeover. We don't have the 1 ratings for this current academic year. Again, STAR scores haven't even been released yet. We're expecting to get those accountability ratings in August.
Good.
Megan, you've been following the takeover or the intervention for 2 years now. Do you think that based on the progress that this district has done in these last 2 years, that in the next 2 years we will be in a better place to transition our elected board members into their positions?
I will say that it's based on the TEA commissioner's comments, it's likely that HISD is going to see improvements academically, particularly on the STAR exams this year. But I will say, I think better place is a little bit of up to a person's interpretation. If that's your definition of a better place, then yes, the district is on track. I would say, I've spoken to parents, community members, teachers who say they are concerned with things like declining enrollment, principal and teacher turnover, and those things are happening in part because of people's dissatisfaction with the state-appointed leadership. And those issues, if HISD can't retain teachers, certified teachers, if they can't retain students, that is going to lead to issues down the line. So I think the question is not like, can HISD see improvements academically, but it's like, can this be sustainable in the long term? Are the improvements that they've made, the new education system, going to last beyond the takeover? And are they going to be reversed by a new elected board? I think that's the question. I don't know the answer to that one.
Megan Menchaca is the HISD reporter for the Houston Chronicle. Thank you for joining us on Hello Houston today, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to be talking about the 89th Texas Legislature, and we'll be taking your calls and questions, 713-440-8870, as Hello Houston continues.
Did you know 80% of our funding comes from listeners like you, right here in Houston? That's why your support is so important. When you give to Houston Public Media, you're investing in trusted news and educational programming that millions depend on daily. Every dollar you give makes a difference, ensuring this public service stays strong for everyone in our community. Help us support this mission. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, offering new construction with custom options and amenities, mature neighborhoods filled with trees, and urban living. Details at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
Support comes from the Dan L. Duncan Comprehensive Cancer Center at Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, offering comprehensive cancer care that is compassionate, personalized, and driven by clinical research. More at stlukeshealth.org/cancer.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Today marks the end of the 89th Texas Legislature. Governor Greg Abbott scored a big win with the school voucher bill, but other landmark legislation is out there that we should be keen on. To discuss the last days of the legislation and the new laws Texas should be aware of, we welcome Jeronimo Cortina, Associate Professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Houston, and he just also happens to be the host of Houston Public Media's Party Politics. Hello there, Jeronimo.
Hello.
Okay, maybe I'm a little out of touch, but it definitely seemed like this legislative session, an awful lot of stuff got done, more than usual and very quickly.
Yes, the productivity of this session increased. But I would say in absolute terms, in terms of the number of bills that were pretty similar in terms of what happened 2 years ago in 2023. But we're going to end up with around 1,600 bills that were approved in 140 days.
Wow. Before this segment, we were talking, even before we talked about HISD, about Senate Bill 12. Can you talk to me a little bit about that one before we get on to some of the other things? And this is the one that was going to put an end to any kind of clubs in school, K through 12 students that focus on sexuality and gender identity.
Yeah, it's, one of the things that had happened, and obviously it's not something that is unique to this particular legislative session. In the past legislative session, we had banning on what would be DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in institutions of higher education. And this is perhaps the K-12 ban on DEI. And basically, this measure extends this ban on diversity and initiatives that have or are related to K-12. And as you say, it's some issues, for example, banning student clubs that have to do with DEI and not allowing them to have an official stand on on campuses.
So this is like the gay straight student alliances, the gay student clubs. They're going to have to. They're no longer going to be at the high schools.
That is correct. Well, we still need to see if the governor is going to sign the bill. So, and here's it's a very interesting procedure, right? Because obviously the legislative process is, let's call it a 3-step instead of the 2 Texas step, or the 2-step is going to be a 3-step process. And the process is that a bill has to pass first the House and the Senate. Most of these bills have already passed both houses, the Senate and the House, and is sent now to Governor Abbott. So Governor Abbott has 2 choices. The first choice is that if the session is still going on, he has 10 days to sign a bill. If he doesn't sign a bill, then the bill automatically becomes law. After the session, after the legislation has adjourned, the governor has 20 days to sign or veto the bill. If we were still in session, which is going to end today, then the House and the Senate or the legislature with 2/3 can override that veto. Obviously, that is not going to be the case because we're not in session anymore, and therefore they cannot override the bill. So the governor can just put some bills in which the governor doesn't feel like he wants to take a position by officially signing a bill. But after 20 days, that bill is going to become law. And the fate for so many bills are in that gray area.
Now, Jeronimo, I have a question about, it feels like this session, and we've been on this trend slowly in the Texas legislature, where there are so many social issues that are being brought to the forefront, like the one that we were just talking about a second ago about, LGBTQ plus clubs within high schools. Yet, where are the bills in regards environmental concerns, criminal justice, income inequities? What is happening within this, Governor Abbott's Texas legislature that we've moved so much towards those social issues, and it feels like we're not getting much traction with other maybe concrete policy? Yeah, that's a great question, as usual, from the three of you. But, it's a trend. It's a trend that we see at the national level. And obviously, it's a trend that we see here in Texas. In some instances, Texas is ahead of the curve in terms of embedding these partisan ideological issues into the policymaking process, but it's something that already happens at the national level. So it's this nationalization of local and state politics. So this is extremely worrisome, because when you look at the state from a pure public policy perspective, not even thinking about if it's Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, that doesn't really matter. But the state is growing, right? From an economic perspective, the state is growing. The state is attracting a lot of people that are moving internally from other states. The state is attracting a lot of investment, and the state obviously has to keep up that trend. So very important policy issues in terms of what is needed to continue this growth for the state are sometimes relegated after or not pay enough attention or devoted enough resources to be able to confront those challenges. And those policies, as you said, Celeste, are going to be, for example, water infrastructure. Yes, we had a bill on water infrastructure funding the Texas Water Fund, but
the big question is it enough money or not? We have issues in terms of repairing the whole state infrastructure, issues about public transportation and transportation connecting key cities. For example, the super train, right, from Houston to Dallas, expanding certain other ports like Freeport in the southwest part of the state or in Fort Bend County. Issues that also have to do with internet, right? We obviously have broadband access, but the big question is, are we really investing enough money on these issues that are a huge priority for the state?
Speaking of that, I first want to remind everyone we are talking with Jeronimo Cortina, assistant professor at the Department of Political Science at UH and co-host of Party Politics here on Houston Public Media. If you have questions, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You were just talking about infrastructure. Did we see any movement, significant movement on the state's electric grid?
Well, that's another one. That's a very important one. And we're going to see. We're going to see if that is enough. No, we did not see significant improvements on what we would expect in terms of the electric grid. And this is very important because the amount of money that we're devoting into that is not enough. And here we enter in this question, and it's also a polarized question between renewable energy or using fossil fuels to provide our power. And businesses, investors are going to come to the state if three conditions are met. Number one is, do we have enough water? Number two, do we have enough power? And number three, are we preparing the labor force to be educated and prepared to take tomorrow's challenges? So if we're not investing in these things and the argument falls within non-renewables versus renewables versus this versus that, we're not going to advance in these issues. So I think that, just once again, from a pure policy perspective, is not a question whether we should go with renewables or fossil fuels. It's a question of what is going to be the best combination, right, of different sources of power. Are we going to increase, for example, wind and solar? And yes, wind and solar have problems, right? Of course, but also fossil fuels have problems. So new alternatives have to come to the fore. The governor has started, for example, creating a commission to study if nuclear plants could be also a plausible solution. And I think that that is a very interesting avenue. Nuclear power has changed dramatically from when we were looking at Chernobyl back in the 80s or 90s, whenever that happened, don't remember. But now it's safer sources, better infrastructure, a footprint that is 10 times smaller than what we used to have. So all these things really need to get into the discussion.
You talk about all of this, and I wonder, and maybe our coverage is skewed in some ways in that we see so much attention on social issues and things like the furries bill, and yet you're talking about things that strengthen and support the state. Was enough time spent that maybe we didn't see on these real significant issues of infrastructure? Or did the legislature spend too much time on these social issues and these party tentpole kind of things?
I think that is all of the above. And the way that our state legislature is composed is obviously we have the House and we have the Senate. Obviously, the Senate is run from a political point of view very efficiently by Lieutenant Governor Patrick. In a couple of sessions ago, they passed rule changes that limit the kind of debate and limit, for example, the rights that the minority party may have on the Texas Senate. But the interesting part here is also that we have internal revolts within the Republican Party in the House between those that are tend to be a little bit more conservative than other Republicans. We have urban-rural divides, and we have the Democrats that in the House that, with their numbers, were very limited in the things that they could do. So when we have these interactions within political parties, when we have these structures between House versus the Senate, and the role that the governor has in the legislative process, then it complicates things to really sit down and start talking about passing or going or not really entering into all these ideological stances.
So I have three things. Just tell me where they ended up. The lottery, which we discussed here, the medical marijuana, and the 10 Commandments on the school walls. Where did those three subjects end up?
So the state lottery regulation was passed by the House and the Senate, so now it's gone to Governor Abbott. That one is very clear in terms of its new regulations, given all the scandals that we had in these past months, and it's going to be continuing under a different agency. New restrictions on ticket purchases, and basically taking care of the irregularities that we saw a couple of months ago. In terms of what happened with THC or medical marijuana, there's two different issues. So you have compassionate use of medical marijuana, and it was a little bit complicated in the sense of what's going to happen in terms of which type of conditions were going to be included. For example, Crohn's disease are going to be. There's some issues regarding, for example, if there was previous use of opioid abuse or not, so on and so forth. So I think that one is a good bill, especially for the people that rely on medical marijuana for certain conditions that help their medical treatment to be improved. And lastly, on the 10 Commandments, the 10 Commandments was sent to Abbott. The governor will decide if he signs or doesn't sign the bill. Most likely it will become law, but certainly it's going to be a bill that is going to be, once it becomes law, immediately challenged as a bill that is not on par with the Constitution.
And the legislature was in session yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, so they were working on the Sabbath and not keeping it holy.
Yes.
The same group that's sending the 10 Commandments to the school wall.
A quick
just to be clear. Just to be clear.
What is the governor's history of vetoing bills? Does he tend to veto much, or is he pretty much hands off? How does it look over different sessions?
Well, it depends. It depends, because this session was the crown jewel for the governor, right? In comparison to the last session, in which he was not able to pass ESA, Education Savings Account, school vouchers, or whatever other name, this session he was able to do so. He primaried out a lot of Republicans that were not happy, that were not willing to vote for this particular bill. But now that he got what he wanted in this session, he got around 85% of his priorities. So it's going to depend on the public outcry, right? And let's just make a hypothesis here and just fantasize a little bit. For example, the issue of THC. We have seen a lot of veteran groups that oppose these things. There has been a lot of movement in terms of social media of, hey, why don't you regulate instead of just killing this industry that it's billions of dollars for the state? So here the position of the governor is, whether he signs it, then certain groups may not be that perhaps supported the governor in re-election efforts may say, well, you know what, I don't think this is good. Now we're going to go against this or that or the elected officials. Or he can just put the bill and let the will of the legislature.
Right. I think you kind of went over this at the beginning, but what I'm curious is, does he have a history of vetoing things, or is he much more kind of now, especially with this slate of bills that's in front of him, do you expect him to be signing them or just kind of step back? The opposite of what the federal does, where if you leave it alone, it's a table veto.
Right. So here, I think that is going to depend. The governor has a mixed record in some issues that perhaps do not align with his legislative priorities. He simply vetoes the bill. Now, obviously, when the legislative session ends, the legislature doesn't have any recourse in terms of providing a override of the veto. And sometimes the governor just leave it there and let the courts take over.
So if you don't like it, let your voice be heard right now, right?
That's right. Do you
exactly? Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, do you expect a special session? I mean, you did say this is kind of the governor's crown session. Yeah. Do you think he'll be calling any special sessions?
I don't know. So far, I don't see that there's going to be appetite for that. Most, the ones that could exert political pressure on this topic, maybe the lieutenant governor, but I think that the lieutenant governor is also, in terms of my humble assessment, he's satisfied with the outcome of this session, and the governor is also satisfied, at least in my very humble opinion.
Jeronimo Cortina is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Houston and a host of Houston Public Media's Party Politics. Jeronimo, thank you so much for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll be talking with Daniel Vaughn about the latest Texas Monthly's Top 50 barbecue list. I'm hungry. Stay with us.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
I want to make a movie about this.
The Arts Hour brings you film.
The themes in it are so far ahead of their time.
Books.
The detail is amazing.
Art.
There's all the personal stuff.
Theatre.
Lots of singing and dancing and colours.
Music.
The dance floor is made for dancing.
And everything in between.
I want it to be exciting.
That's the Arts Hour with me, Nikki Beatty.
I really identified with it.
From the BBC.
The Arts Hour, Friday nights at 9 on News 88.7.
Support Houston Public Media by donating a vehicle you no longer need. We'll take it in any condition. It's free to you, easy to do, and it could mean hundreds of dollars in support. Visit houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thanks.
Support comes from Downtown Houston Plus, with new businesses like Tenfold Coffee Company, Meow Wolf, Barbacana, Punchline Comedy Club, and Bubble Boba. Details at downtownhouston.org.
Support comes from Smart Financial Center in Sugar Land, presenting jazz saxophonist Dave Kaz and Friends. Summer Horns 2025 Tour on Friday, August 1st at Smart Financial Center. Tickets at smartfinancialcenter.net.
Support comes from School of the Woods, founded in 1962, offering Montessori education from early childhood through grade 12. Enrollment is now open. More info at schoolofthewoods.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, we've been waiting for this one.
This is the one.
Celeste
has been licking her lips over there.
So last week, Texas Monthly released their list of the 50 best barbecue joints in Texas. The magazine's barbecue team traveled thousands of miles, visited hundreds of barbecue joints across the state to determine the best candidates for the list. So joining us now to tell us more is Daniel Vaughn, who is the quote-unquote barbecue editor at Texas Monthly. I guess maybe he majored in barbecue.
I
don't want that job.
I don't know where
Daniel,
you get that.
how do you get that job? Asking for a friend on record.
Daniel, welcome to Hello Houston.
I majored in architecture. I guess that's the. I was an architect for 12 years before doing a food blog all about barbecue. And after eating about 500 different barbecue joints, Texas Monthly decided to bring me on, and I changed careers completely.
So, what's your golden list? What makes a great barbecue sandwich?
A great barbecue sandwich. Wow. Well, so much of what we're looking for on this list is what's on the barbecue tray, without any help from the pickles, the onions, the sauce, and the bun. My favorite barbecue sandwich is really a chopped brisket sandwich. I mean,
can't go wrong.
To me, that is, I think, the number one order in barbecue across Texas. Chopped brisket on a nice buttered griddled bun, if you can. Some pickles, onions, dill pickles, please. No sweet pickles.
Before you get any
barbecue
deeper
sauce.
into all of this, I've judged, we've talked about this on the show, I judge at the barbecue cook-off here every year, and we get maybe 20 samples. And by the time we've worked through those 20, it all kind of blurs together, so much of it. You're doing hundreds of barbecues. What separates the best from the second best or the third best? Because it seems like there'd be just a huge grouping at the top and a huge grouping at the bottom. And that pretty much any then could change position depending on your taste and mood that day.
Really, it's more about like a lot of places are in the middle, and few places are, on that bad list, and very few places are on that really great list. And so, I mean, it's all about consistency, right? I mean, we're looking at the barbecue for sure. Like that is the primary thing we're looking at. How is your sliced brisket, the pork ribs, the sausage? Those things are served at every barbecue joint in Texas, along with whatever poultry item, whether it's chicken or turkey, the sides, the desserts. We're looking at all those things, but it really comes down to the barbecue itself, to those smoked meats. And then, those, is it well seasoned? Is it juicy? Is it tender? For all those items. And then, when it comes to like the best of the best, it's about consistency over several visits, right? So is it that impressive the first time, the second time, and the third time?
What about the sauce? What about the sauce?
What about the sauce?
There's so many different kinds. No,
What about the sauce?
There's so many different kinds. I mean, that can really screw up a good barbecue sandwich,
Well, if it's good barbecue, it doesn't have sauce.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm a Southern boy. I've got to have sauce.
Same. I like sauce.
Yeah, I mean, yes. As our governor once said, it's not great barbecue without the sauce, and then was supremely roasted right after that, because Texas barbecue doesn't need sauce when it's great. I mean, we do have a whole segment in there about fun, inventive barbecue sauces that we encountered over our big search. But I want my barbecue sauce on the side. I want to be able to dunk it if I feel like it, or leave it alone if it doesn't need it.
Okay, enough process.
So, I want that choice.
Enough process. What made the list in our area?
Houston barbecue joints? Yeah. Talk to us about Houston.
Oh, do y'all not have a subscription? Man.
No, and we also don't have any barbecue in front of us, which would have been a lovely
That is a tragedy. Well, and unfortunately, Monday is such a tough day to find barbecue as well. So many places are closed. But Truth Barbecue is highest on the list there at number 9. In Houston and another location in Brenham. And that's been our favorite in Houston for the last list as well. So
why?
Truth Barbecue is spectacular. Their brisket it's just flawless. The fatty side and the lean side both super juicy, great smoke flavor, great seasoning level. I mean, for me, I want my brisket and really all the barbecue to have that balance of I want to taste the smoke, the seasoning, and the meat itself. If any one of those things overpowers, then then the next place down the list is going to win.
Okay, you said Truth. You said Truth was number 9. What would it possibly take for them to move up to number 1?
Well, a lot of it, when it comes down to the final weeks of tasting is me going to each of these places, and what ends up sticking out more than the great bites are the small mistakes. And so really it's just about small mistakes making the difference, really. The difference between number 1 and number 10 is minute. We have a blessing in Texas of really incredible barbecue all over the state. And so, it is tough to judge one to the next. And so, like I said, it often comes down to little mistakes.
Well, fortunately, Damaris is open on Monday, barbecue. And have you ever gone to Coop's in Galveston? It's a mom and pop barbecue.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
Yes. They got the billboard on the way down from Houston. So you can't miss it. I did enjoy Coop's. I wrote about Coop's I think last month. Yeah. And I enjoy the array of barbecue they have and the sides.
Okay, Truth is number 9, highest we have in Houston. What's next? for Houston?
So then brisket and rice and Pinkertons are both in our top 50. So Pinkertons has, of course, been around for a while. They also have a San Antonio location. And, we love their variety.
My co-hosts are writing down as you're saying these.
And if you love sauce, then you got to go get those ribs and get the candy paint on them. That is their super sweet sauce that they literally paint on with a paintbrush.
Is Rudy's
onto your ribs.
Is Rudy's on your list?
You really haven't read this list in like the last 20 years. Rudy's doesn't have a chance. It's chain barbecue.
It's getting rough in here.
It's getting hot.
The cream corn is pretty good. I'll say that.
We come together as a team in late August, to really send out the marching orders of which region each of these tasters is going to have, and in doing so, I put together a PowerPoint presentation showing everyone what they should be looking for. But we also have barbecue in front of us, and we ordered in Franklin barbecue and Rudy's barbecue, so you could see really two ends of the barbecue spectrum when tasting, so we could talk about different qualities of the barbecue. Of course,
you've listed 3 for Houston. I believe there's 6 altogether on your list from our area, correct?
Yeah, so also in Bel Air, so it might be kind of hard to find in the list because we do alphabetize it by city, and Blood Bros Barbecue is technically in Bel Air rather than Houston. So fear not, they're in our honorable mentions list. Feege's Barbecue in Houston as well. Regal's and Gatlin's.
That's by me. Regal's.
What about the pit room? Pit room there?
The pit room is not on our list this time around, but if you go further out in the Houston area, we really love Corkscrew Barbecue out in Spring, and then there's a newcomer of Rosemeyer Barbecue. It's a food truck in Spring that it's sitting there next to a gas station. They really do incredible barbecue and different homemade ice cream every week.
Any new surprising trend you saw in the barbecue world that actually worked, that you thought they're onto something?
Well, a big trend that we've seen really since the best new barbecue joint list that we put out 2 years ago is really this fusion of a lot of different ethnic cuisines with barbecue. And, brisket and rice is one of those where they have their Vietnamese roots, and they have rice is such a big component of what they're doing. They have a brisket fried rice is one of their big popular dishes, and then sliced brisket served over top of white rice being another one. Poor man's macaroni, which is like this sort of blue-collar Vietnamese dish of spaghetti and tomato paste. I'm sorry, macaroni and tomato paste and bacon is one of their side dishes, so making it really unique, as well as those candied pickled jalapenos they serve.
It's interesting that you mentioned that fusion. Levant Barbecue just opened off Westheimer near us, and it's halal, and it was absolutely delicious. And what I liked is, like you said, they had the regular, at this specific barbecue joint, they had regular macaroni, but then they had their own like cucumber salads and all the different fusions. We did have a question. The Dark One asks, how about Sugarland? What is great near Sugarland?
Well, I would say the closest barbecue there would be Harlem Road Barbecue in Richmond. And so that is also in our honorable mentions list. And Chef Ara Malekian out there does a great job with beef ribs, the brisket, the pork ribs, and his desserts. He's got this chocolate bread pudding, which is just fantastic.
My last question for you is, what are you having for lunch today?
Probably some seafood.
I was going to say a green juice. How about a green juice?
A nice salad.
Maybe a green juice and a salad.
That's right. Daniel Vaughn is the barbecue editor at Texas Monthly. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk summer travel with local travel agent Kate Johnson and learn more about the Houston Public Library's annual summer reading program. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed for any lifestyle. More at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
A nice sunny day today. We'll get up to around 90. Partly cloudy tonight, low 76. It's 87. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, State Senator Molly Cook will join us to talk about the last-minute bills that moved through the Texas Legislature, and we'll also get her personal thoughts of her first session. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. The sun is out, and it's time to travel. We'll chat with local travel advisor Kate Johnson about the summer travel season.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, the Houston Public Library's Youth and Family Services Manager tells us about their summer reading program.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Senate is taking up a massive tax cut and spending package that narrowly passed the House last month. NPR's Tamara Keith reports the legislation has divided congressional Republicans and is facing significant revisions in the upper chamber.
The big questions are how hard it will be for Senate Republicans to pass this and how many changes they'll make to the House version. There's a lot of pressure on Senate Republicans because this is basically contains Trump's entire domestic agenda all in one bill. Tax cuts, immigration spending, cuts to Medicaid and other programs.
That's NPR's Tamara Keith reporting. Delegations from Russia and Ukraine have wrapped up their latest round of peace talks in Istanbul, but the meeting, lasting just over 2 hours, ended without significant progress toward ending the war. NPR's Rebecca Rossman reports the two sides did agree to another prisoner exchange.
Russian and Ukrainian delegates say both sides have agreed to exchange all seriously wounded or ill prisoners of war, as well as captured fighters under the age of 25. They also agreed to exchange the remains of 6,000 soldiers. Russia offered a 2 to 3 day ceasefire, well short of the 30-day proposal Ukraine made last month. Expectations were low for this second round of talks, which wrapped up after less than 2 hours. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he hoped to bring together Zelensky, Putin, and possibly President Trump for a third round of talks later this month. Rebecca Rossman, NPR News, Istanbul.
Groundwater reserves in the western U.S. are rapidly drying up. Alex Hager from member station KUNC reports scientists use NASA satellites to gather data for a new study.
The numbers they found are grim. Over the past 2 decades, the Colorado River Basin lost nearly 28 million acre-feet of groundwater. That's roughly the amount stored in Lake Mead, the nation's largest reservoir. Kathleen Ferris is a groundwater expert at Arizona State University. She wasn't involved in the study, but says groundwater pumping needs better regulation.
We need to do far more than we're doing. And I am very pessimistic that the political will to make something happen is not there.
Ferris said stricter rules are needed soon because of the shrinking Colorado River. More cities, businesses, and farms are pumping groundwater as the amount on the surface gets smaller. For NPR News, I'm Alex Hager in Fort Collins, Colorado.
President Trump's decision to double tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 50% is ramping up trade tensions with China. Beijing has criticized the decision, accusing the U.S. of violating a recent trade agreement. The move has also rattled global markets. On Wall Street, the Dow was down to 160 points. This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. The vice chair of the Harris County Republican Party is happy about the forward momentum of President Trump's tax and spending plan, known as One Big Beautiful Bill. News 88.7's Tom Perumian fills us in.
Speaking on Hello Houston, Harris GOP Vice Chair Kyle Scott deflected criticism of the bill as tax breaks for the rich at the expense of social safety net programs.
I think all of us are happy about the extension of the tax cuts, the tax breaks that will be given on people earning tips, Social Security benefits, as well as auto interest. And then there's also tying some of the benefits for Medicaid to work requirements. I think a lot of people are satisfied with as well.
The bill would expand work requirements for Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Nearly 6 million Texans are enrolled in Medicaid. More than 1.6 million are in SNAP, according to the State Health Commission. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
The city of Sugar Land is investing $12.5 million in its own town square. From the Fort Bend County Bureau, News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us more about the city's revitalization efforts.
Sugar Land has approved 3 5-year agreements to renovate the city's town square. The city has approved $6 million to modernize Building B, which is located on the corner of Highway 6 and Town Center Boulevard. Another $2 million will fund renovations of Building H, which is across the street from the city's conference center. The remaining $4.5 million will be dedicated to office improvements, aimed at attracting and retaining tenants. The Sugar Land Town Square was established in 2003 and spans nearly 33 acres. Sugar Land has placed a renewed emphasis on redevelopment as the city ages and looks for new ways to grow. From the Fort Bend County Bureau, I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
It's currently 85 degrees, partly sunny with a high near 90. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870. Or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Who does not have a subscription to Texas Monthly.
But
yeah, he got called out, Frank.
Hour.
I'm sure he watches us all the time.
I'm sure he does. He's in Austin. But you know, you can watch us anytime you want on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're global. On YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and look for the Houston Public Media channel, and there we are every day streaming live.
I didn't know Rudy's was down on the list so badly.
It's not even on the list.
I love Rudy's.
Okay, for the record, I do too. We are in Texas, and we got to be careful what we say about barbecue around here. But I will say, do you know what I just had that I have not had in ages?
Oh, the same thing I had.
A hot dog.
I know, I haven't had that.
Okay, so we had a baby shower here, and it was baseball themed. So they asked me to bring in my hot dog machine, my hot dog roller, like you see at like a 7-Eleven. And they planned the party for 11 while we were on the air. So if you were watching us on the YouTube channel, as soon as we hit like 11:58, all three of us ran out of here to run down the hall to have hot dogs.
And there were like 3 left.
Right, one for each of us.
Well, I didn't. Our executive producer Jim actually gave me a little piece of his. So
yeah, that
thanks,
was very
Jim.
sweet. But anyway, it seems very odd. We should have gone and had barbecue. But anyway, anything on the weather, Frank? You want to fill us in on? No, it's just going to be nice.
It was a pretty nice weekend for most of us. We had a few storms, and as we go go through the week, there may be a few scattered summer-type storms that pop up, but not a lot of organized weather. It should be pretty quiet. So 20%ers here and there. Today looks dry and hot, 90 degrees.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I hold you responsible for the weather. Coming up on the show, we're also going to talk about traveling and what's going on in the travel environment this summer, what you need to know, and then also about summer reading programs. That's still coming up. But Celeste, start us off with the topics of the day.
Thanks, Ernie. Texas lawmakers signed off Saturday on a $338 billion two-year spending plan that directs billions toward hiking teacher pay, cutting property taxes, and shoring up the state's water infrastructure after House and Senate budget writers ironed out their differences and won approval from both chambers on their final draft. The budget now heads to Comptroller Glenn Hagar, who is expected to verify there is enough revenue to cover the legislature's planned spending. The last step before the 1,056-page bill reaches Governor Greg Abbott's desk. The spending plan doles out the money to run the state's business for the next 2 years from September through the end of August 2027. Joining us now is State Senator Molly Cook from Houston to discuss the budget, the end of her first session, and more. If you have a question for Senator Molly Cook, you can give us a call now at 713-440-8870. Senator Cook, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much. Good morning, y'all, or good afternoon now. Happy Signy Die.
We just made it.
Let me jump in right with this, that we heard a lot of attention, a lot of focus on like hemp bills, the furries, the 10 Commandments. What should we be paying attention to in what came out this session? Where is really the other things that are going to impact our lives that we should know about?
That's a great question. And you're right. Some of the things that get headlines are not always going to be the most impactful or the biggest problems. And as always, you can follow the money. And so looking at, what did make it into the budget, what did not make it into the budget, is a real statement of Texas values and where we're headed. And I think that there's a lot of good things to celebrate in there. Top of mind, of course, is the school funding package. And I will be totally honest, I don't think that it's the way that Democrats would have written it. The resounding chorus from folks over and over across the state was raise the basic allotment. The Senate chose to take a different approach, and we're going to be watching closely as that plays out. But $8.5 billion is worth writing home about. And we're really hopeful that it's going to be a boon to the quality of life of both our teachers and our students and produce better outcomes. Of course, we would love to see things like Medicaid expansion that could have the largest portion of that kind of cost could be borne by the federal government. We see a massive, massive investment in things like prisons and Operation Lone Star, while the Department of State Health Services and DFPS that care for our foster children do not see as much of an investment. But there's a lot to celebrate and a lot to process. And of course, a lot of high-profile bills still awaiting the government's signature or veto.
When we see that $338 billion, do we have the money?
Yes, and so this is a budget surplus year. I think the surplus was right around $20 billion. The state, depending on how you feel about this, did decide to keep hold of some of it, to set aside some of it, not spend to zero, as it were. As an emergency room nurse, of course, I want to see spending that saves lives, but we do expect to see perhaps smaller budget surpluses in the future, and so we are holding some of that back to make sure that there's still money next session.
So if everything gets approved, or whatever gets approved by the governor, will it become law January 1st of 2026? Is that when these things go into effect? And by that, I also mean school vouchers won't be available until when?
Well, that's a great question. And different laws have different provisions written into the bills that say, if it gets a 2/3 vote in both chambers, it actually starts September. The comptroller has, I think, until next school year to figure out how to get the voucher program, the ESAs, up and running for folks. And so we should expect that to be in place. I believe it's next school year. I'd have to double check my notes, not this coming school year.
So what's your
thought? Some of these laws will, if they're signed, they'll hit September 1st.
As a medical person, I consider medical people sort of experts on a lot of things. What's your take on this SB 12 that does away with gay clubs in schools? Because we were talking how many lives are saved by having a gay-straight student alliance in a high school where someone who is coming to terms with their sexual identity can actually go and find harmony and peace and encouragement. And they are.
I love how you said all of that. That is so meaningful. And, even when I wasn't out, I was in the Gay Straight Alliance at my high school as well, and it was deeply meaningful. And I believe SB 12 is the total DEI ban. And so it's important to recognize that basically anything that makes us special or different or celebrates diversity is now under extreme scrutiny and potentially illegal. So, I find these incredibly concerning. And it really fits a pattern. Like I said, a lot to celebrate this session, but it really does fit a pattern of an astounding erosion of religious freedom, of privacy, not just for kids, but also for adults. And then also for, just the fact that we wasted a lot of time on bills that would, ban a club in a school instead of doing things like making sure that we have intra-regional rail, or our roads are paved correctly, or that we've got health care for every single Texan who's currently experiencing a loss in life expectancy.
Yeah,
So
we need security guards at those schools. We don't need to ban gay clubs. Klein High School started theirs in the year 2000. Which means 25 years they've had a gay student. There's one in Conroe. In fact, I think almost every high school has a gay club. I don't know for
Absolutely.
sure.
And it does mean that also you can't have, a safe space for Hispanic students or immigrant students or Black students.
Yeah, Spanish club, no Spanish club.
So, I find that very concerning as well. And children have rights. Children and high schoolers have rights.
Well, and the way I read the bill, just one more thing, the way I read the bill is that even if a teacher wanted to have a Spanish club off campus and say, you know what, we'll meet at my house if you want to come on Saturday, they could be fired.
And that raises a great question. It also came up during the 10 Commandments and prayers in school discussion is exactly, is this on campus, off campus, during class time, not during class time? What can someone do on their personal time? Does that put them at risk? There is a lot of confusion around the legality of the implementation of these laws. And that also fits a pattern, kind of a disregard for the fact that the passage of these bills may cause some real chaos.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are talking with Senator Molly Cook as the end of the 89th Texas Legislature session has wrapped up. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
I guess before we move away from the education stuff, the argument could be made that this is just a difference in philosophy. Now, tell me where this is right and where this is wrong. In that one faction says schools should be for teaching information, period, be done with it. And others feel that the school experience is part of education. So it should include these clubs and understanding who we are as human beings outside of the textbook. Is that a safe argument to make? Is that what you see in Austin as the divide, or am I missing something here?
No, I think that is one of the divides for sure. And it is a fascinating conversation, honestly. It's, where is the role of the parent? Where is the role of the teacher? In my mind, as many qualified, loving, caring, safe adults in a kid's life as possible, the better. And teachers are experts in education where sometimes parents aren't, but parents are experts in their kids and they love them. And so how do you kind of honor both of those truths at the same time? One of the other kind of factions and divides is that line best debated on a local level? Is government close to the people, best for the people? And you're seeing an increase of state takeovers. You're seeing an increase in sort of this partisanship on on school boards. And so is this the role of the state to kind of mandate how these things work, or should it be up to each individual school board to vote on it, to have a discussion on the local level? And really all of those discussions were in play as we were debating these bills and passing or not passing them.
Senator Cook, we spoke earlier with UH professor Jeronimo Cortina, and we talked a little bit more about some of the policies surrounding our electric grid. Where and how did we land as we wrapped up this session in regards to the electric grid here in Texas? We also understand that is of top priority for Texans. Water, infrastructure, and our electrical grid. Can you give us some updates on that? And how do you feel that you did, given this was your first session?
Great questions. So I spent all of Winter Storm Uri in the emergency department, treating people, watching people just suffer something that absolutely never should have happened and was preventable. Unfortunately, we have not seen major changes take place since then. We have not seen a massive investment in weatherization. We have not seen a massive investment in making sure that we have grid connection within our state and then, of course, around the state. SB 6, I believe, by Senator King looks good. I don't think it's been signed just yet. So some of this is still kind of up in the air. Things are in conference committee. And so a bill goes into conference committee, the House and the Senate meet and talk about it and come out looking very different potentially sometimes. And then, of course, still be waiting the governor's signature. So some of that's going to shake out over the next several days. One thing that I can share, that all of the Harris County delegation in the Senate worked very, very hard to protect our seniors. Seniors, whether they were in independent living facilities, things like senior retirement communities, assisted living facilities, nursing homes. Nursing homes do a pretty darn good job of regulation, actually, and keeping folks safe. We were stopped at every turn by a couple of special interest groups and powerful lobby organizations. And we're going to do a lot of work over the interim to make sure that folks understand what we're fighting for. Very basic, simple protections. If you want to do business with our senior citizens, you should have an added layer of accountability. And unfortunately, none of us are going to bring home a bill that actually makes those changes. And it's because of a couple of lobby groups. So we'll be excited to come home and share more information about that soon and look toward next session to put in place some of those protections that need to be there for disaster preparedness.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We're speaking right now with State Senator Molly Cook from Houston on the edge of this legislative session, the end of it, I should say. Our number is 713-440-8870. Hector from Friendswood is on the line. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is, so we're banning the school clubs, but we're putting in the Ten Commandments.
Seems to be what is happening.
Apparently, Bible school is fine at lunch period. And to your point, we got a text from Colby, from Katie, saying, does this bill mean that kids can't be in Boy Scouts in school since it's gender-based?
There are, let me add that there are a couple of, specific restrictions in these bills around the kids can have a club, but what does that look like? And can the teacher be a sponsor? Is the sponsor allowed to actually educate in that forum? So it's not just like a straight up blanket ban. It gets a little bit more complex than that. Of course, all of these bills have a chilling effect on people's religious freedom, their First Amendment rights, their right to a positive school experience that celebrates the differences in every child. But your overall read of this is correct. We are emphasizing bringing Christianity, a specific Southern Texas brand of Christianity, into our schools, and we are at multiple levels of government banning DEI. Even going so far as to ban really large investment firms and large companies from even, the ESG provisions, which is sort of a DEI ban on a large scale financial level. So yes, I echo those concerns.
Hector, thank you for your call. And Colby also made a point. Do you believe that these changes, such as the Ten Commandments in the classroom and the ban on LGBTQ plus clubs, are settled law, or do you anticipate legal pushback in the courts?
That's such a great question. I absolutely anticipate legal pushback. Directly affected community members are already talking about, what can a lawsuit look like, because it's so important for us to always, always, always come back to the Constitution. And that is another troubling trend that I saw that I'd like to just share with folks, is how many times I saw written into a bill, into the language of a bill, that this line, this clause, this section is not reviewable by the judiciary. And to me, I'm a young American, but that is the first time that I've ever seen somebody try to legislate doing away with checks and balances in our three branches of government.
Were those lines stricken?
Absolutely expect.
Were those lines stricken in the final version of the bill?
Not that I've seen. Again, a lot still waiting signature and conference committee, things like that. But we should absolutely expect some of this to go to court, which is very frustrating. Why write policy that we know flies in the face of the Constitution and waste our taxpayer dollars on litigation? But yes, I would expect some lawsuits.
We're putting a lot of attention on school issues in this conversation, but also then that leads me to, what have we done to address gun violence? We saw that the backpack bill that was going through. Where are we on any kind of gun reform?
In my opinion, we passed exactly 0 firearm safety reforms, despite them being wildly popular with the Texas public. We've seen things like universal background checks and emergency risk protection orders, raising the age to purchase high-capacity, high-velocity weapons to 21. None of those even saw the light of day. And in fact, we went so far as to pass a bill that makes it illegal for localities to do gun buyback programs. and another one that makes it illegal to enact an extreme risk protection order. And that bill to ban ERPOs, extreme risk protection orders, otherwise known as red flag laws, actually almost put regular domestic violence restraining orders in jeopardy. So just kind of a messy approach to that policy. And so not only did we not enact firearm safety reforms, we actually put laws in place to make it impossible to enact them in the future. The Texas public should be super concerned about that and be looking for ways to get involved.
Senator Cook, I do have a question in regarding, does the Texas Democrats have a strategy in regards to actually inciting some kind of change? Because it seems like the Republican Party has been able to push quite a bit of legislation, and yet we continue to hear from the Texas Democratic leaders, that they're unhappy with this, but you as well can write bills and you guys can get together and vote. What is happening? What is the strategy for the next legislative session?
Well, let me just celebrate a little bit some of the wins that we have had. So the first thing that I'll say is we have all brought home money to our districts, and that's a super, super important part of this process, securing funding for your district. We're going to see a major regional flood mitigation project. I really want to shout out the city of Bel Air and how hard they've worked on that. In SD15, we're going to see a big investment on federally qualified health care centers, these FQHCs, and their incubator programs. So we'll see more healthcare on the local level, the community level for folks who really need it. Tons of investment in parks in our district. So every senator is bringing those things home, and the Democrats worked hard to make that happen for all of us. I will also say one of the most meaningful things that I saw happen this session in HB2, no matter how I feel about the structure that we kind of ended up with, the architecture, one person stood up for part-time, non-teacher employees more than anybody else, and that was Senator Boris Miles, who's, of course, a Democrat from Harris County. And he secured $500 million for support staff that's not teachers, who desperately need the money, including part-time folks. And so what I want people to know is if a Republican gets the headline, it's a Republican's bill. I promise you there were Democrats in that committee boldly standing up, one or two of us at a time. We are so outnumbered in these committees on the Senate side, and we are making changes for you, and we are making changes for the people of Texas who are in the middle class, who need us the most, people of Texas who are working. One of the bills that I'm most excited about was Senator Nathan Johnson's single stairway bill. So we're looking at housing affordability and kind of getting rid of these outdated codes and making sure that we can truly build affordable housing that meets the needs of working people and middle class people. And of course, we got a bill already signed into law that will help reduce the amount of advertising that kids run across around vaping and e-cigarettes. And so your Democrats are working for you and, quite frankly, working against the odds and still getting things done. And I'm just so proud of that work. In my opinion, most of the work happens outside the Capitol. It's time now for us to come home, love on our communities, talk to folks, tell the story of what all we accomplished, hear from them about what they're upset about, what they want us to work on next time, and knock on doors every single day this year to make sure that we bring the Capitol to people's doorsteps, and that next session we bring the people to the Texas Capitol.
Before we get your take on what it was like for a first session, I have one more area I want to hit on, and that's border security. What did we see happen along that line, and is it a positive move in your opinion?
We really just saw a leaning into what was already happening. There's a lot of discussion right now that whatever my feelings are about the kind of choices we're making around border policy, there's a lot of talk about federal reimbursement for the money that's been spent by Texas, which is really valuable. So any money in the Texas coffers is a good thing. I think, again, what we see is just a lot of rhetoric. There's not always super good data about what's really happening, what's not happening. We're seeing a massive, massive investment at the border, and I'm just not sure that the return on investment is making sense. And then we're also seeing an expansion of the definition of the border, so being more inclusive of counties further and further away from the border, so that this money that's available for Operation Lone Star, this ethos that's happening at the border, is getting a geographical expansion. I do find that concerning, although, as always, y'all know I'm a city slicker. I come from Houston, and so I rely on my border colleagues to really tell me the truth about what's going on down there.
Okay, last thing before we let you go. End of your first session. Did you make the right choice doing this? What was it like?
You know what? We hit every single one of our goals, and I think our strategy proved successful. And what I heard from Senate District 15, I think we hear it from a lot of Houstonians, is, we want you to go in there and tell the truth and kick some and really, make a splash and stick up for our values. But we also want you to get projects built, get things done, and bring home money for the district. And I worked very hard to strike that balance as a freshman, and I think that we did it. And I just want to share with folks some of the biggest things I learned were how important committee hearings are and how important it is for the public to be there, how willing to change their minds every single senator is. When they hear good comments, good feedback, personal stories, I have seen every single senator in this chamber take feedback, make changes to their policy, go back to the drawing board with people. And then also just how impactful it is when our constituents reach out to us. I do not take a vote in committee or on the floor without looking at our CMS stats, our constituent management system stats. So I can see who said yes, who said no, what were their comments, and all of that. And so we really, really, really rely on y'all to make the right choices, to take the right votes. So I just encourage people, keep engaging, keep talking to your neighbors. The more people involved in this process, the better the policy is going to be.
Senator, thank you.
Senator Molly Cook of District 15, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank y'all so much.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we've got all your travel trends and plans covered with travel advisor Kate Johnson. We'll break down everything you need to know right now on Hello Houston.
Before talking to computational social scientist Sandra Matz, I asked her to spy on me.
I did some snooping around your online life yesterday night, which was extremely fun to do.
Our lack of digital privacy, especially in the age of AI, and what we can do about it. I'm Manusha Zamarodi, and that's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
You can hear that tomorrow night at 9 o'clock.
People in Asheville, North Carolina are still picking up the pieces after Hurricane Helene ripped through last year, damaging or destroying more than 100,000 homes.
There are a lot of people living in their cars. There's a lot of people about to be evicted, and we can't build enough affordable housing fast enough.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly, responding to a housing crisis with another hurricane season now underway on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Coming up today at 3.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, the legends of the 1950s and early 1960s pop return to the stage. Join Patti Page, Frankie Lane, The Platters, and more for Moments to Remember. Tonight at 7 on Houston Public Media TV8.
Support comes from electricityplans.com, helping Houstonians find electricity plans based on home energy usage with tools to compare rates. Enrollment details and more at electricityplans.com.
Support comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Ilan Ramon, A Life and Legacy, exploring the first Israeli astronaut's family history and his soaring achievements in air and space. Now through August 3rd. Details at hmh.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from IL Texas, helping to prepare students for leadership roles in the international community by emphasizing servant leadership, language immersion, and character building. More at iltexas.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manus, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Are you expecting to travel this summer? Well, we've got you covered, and we've got just the guest for you. Kate Johnson is a Houston-based travel advisor and the owner of Kate Johnson Travel. We've invited her to answer your summer travel questions and give us all the trends and tricks to know and discuss tips and tricks for those looking to get out this summer. And now is the time to call if you have your questions for Kate. You can call us at 713-440-8870.
I've got one to start us off with. I'm watching the news, and I'm hearing Vegas very down in visitors, but the cost of everything is very high. Are we going to see that adjust as people aren't traveling? Is that going to mean for those of us who want to travel, there's going to be some really great deals because you can't sustain to have high prices if nobody's coming?
You're exactly right. Yes. So generally hotels work with dynamic pricing. So they're pricing their available inventory based on how much they already have booked. So generally you'll see usually what you see is lower prices as rooms fill up, and then the remaining inventory gets the higher pricing. So that's usually not a good thing for people who delay making their travel plans. And the reverse, which is what you're saying, is, okay, if nobody's going to these destinations and the prices are higher, are we expecting to see those fall? And I think generally, yes. You have destinations like Vegas, it's cyclical. So normally in the summer, it's at a discount. Who wants to go to the desert in the summer. So you'll see seasonality plays a really big role in pricing, but already we're seeing some international airfare, like for international destinations later on this summer, has started to fall.
But even Disney was down over, if I understand, Memorial Day weekend. So is this a trend you folks in this industry should be concerned with, or is it going to be better for us travelers?
I do think there's an opportunity to take advantage if less people are traveling and you're seeing softer prices. We deal a lot with trips that are planned more in advance, and so we haven't seen direct impacts of low inventory and soft pricing whenever it's a very short planning window.
Well, is this a lot of international travelers that aren't going to Disney, that aren't going to Vegas, that aren't coming to America because of where we are in the world right now?
Yes, we are seeing a big decline in basically hosting international tourism. Yeah. So there has been a lot of global trepidation in coming to the U.S. I think whenever there's newness and a lot of changing, that could be a concern. And so for Americans, if you're looking to stay closer to home, it could really be a benefit.
Everybody in Mexico is from Canada.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they are. They're all going to Canada.
Yeah.
From Canada to Mexico.
Kate, we are seeing a lot of air traffic issues. How could that affect travelers this summer?
Yes, this is one of our least favorite things is dealing with the airports and airlines. But yeah, what we always recommend if you have a connecting flight to give yourself 2 hours. I mean, flight delays happen whether or not there's these huge air traffic control issues that we're seeing. So 2 hours for especially an international connection, and trying to not be on like the last flight of the day, just like kind of bake in some flexibility, knowing that there's so much uncertainty. And then we always recommend traveling with a carry-on, because also lost luggage is still a situation. And when there's a lot of strikes
I
at
laugh
airlines
at what
and everything.
you're saying, because I'm always the guy who says, well, it's 15 minutes for the connection. I can make it. And I always want the last flight of the day because I don't want to go early. So I'm doing it all wrong. But I do take a carry-on instead.
Okay, so there's
I do
that.
one right.
You're living on the edge, though.
Yes, I'm definitely.
Yes, so I do recommend that you wear, running sneakers when for your airport travel days. But we also, have air tags in our luggage.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. It's very popular, air tags.
Well, I think airlines are trying to get a little bit more sophisticated with the technology for tracking bags. Yep. But anytime you can have that in your control.
But it's still very difficult. I mean, someone probably needs an expert like you to figure out those international connections, because sometimes you have the luxury of 2 hours if you're flying out of Newark.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's not. It's 45 minutes.
Oh, and so many people are trying to avoid Newark these days. But yeah, a lot of times if you're looking at flights, you see, this one has a 50-minute connection and this one has a 4.5-hour connection. Right. You're like, neither of these are great. There's expediting services at airports, but different airports manage. Sometimes you're going through customs, sometimes you're not. Different ones have different passport checks. So out of Houston, we don't have as many international long-haul flights to Europe as other cities. So we're kind of at the mercy of Amsterdam and Frankfurt and Munich and London.
How are the cruise ships doing these days?
I think they're pretty full, especially they've kind of really benefited the last several years. And especially whenever you do have so much of this ground craziness, so train strikes and rail strikes, it's kind of nice to just get on a boat for 7 to 10 days, get to see a lot, and have everything in one place. We're seeing a bigger trend in the small boat cruises, so less people on board, a little bit more private space, more hotel brands are getting into the cruise space. So there's definitely some new names and brands in cruising.
What would you say are some of the trends? Are people heading to the beach still this summer, or are people looking to kind of escape the heat? What are we seeing in regards to how people want a vacation?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting trends we've been watching is these cool-cations. So any time during the year, kind of escaping to far-flung places like Antarctica. Alaska cruises obviously are very popular in the summer, speaking of cruises. But Scandinavia, I took my own family to Finland this past year. So really getting a little bit out of your comfort zone, but
Iceland seems to be a big.
Yes,
Iceland.
It's trending.
Absolutely.
The administration keeps going there.
We did get a YouTube question. Rudy Guerrero would like to know, are travel agents still around? And if so, do they provide a good service? So do you consider yourself a travel agent?
I love this question. Are we still around? Here I am.
They do exist.
Yes,
We see one right now.
We kind of sit in the more like advisory space. So usually the old school was you go into a travel agency office and they're booking your train and they're booking your flights for you right there. Everybody has those skills available to them with the internet. We are more of an advisor, like you would have a financial advisor or any of these other services, and where they're consulting based on your specific needs, and then we customize the trip, and so the value is the time savings, often the cost savings, when we can say, hey, if your dates are flexible and you go 3 weeks later, we get better weather, better pricing, a better overall experience. So we can make those types of recommendations.
Sort of a concierge.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Because you can't really plan a safari. I mean, if you
that's right. Good luck.
You'll get eaten by a tiger.
I'd hate to see the one I would plan online. We're talking with Kate Johnson. She is a Houston-based travel advisor, and we're taking your calls, 713-440-8870. As probably our budget-conscious host here, what is the cheapest way to find, what is the way to find the cheapest but most safe and guaranteed travel plans? Like if you want to do online and book yourself, you always run the risk it may not be there when you get there. How do you do it to save money but still know you're going to get your vacation?
Yeah. That's how do you know it will be there when you get there? So I do think there's a lot of people that will do Airbnbs and things like that, which I think if you go with a super host or really do your homework, I think that's totally fine. Hotels, you'll get confirmation numbers and all of that. Booking in advance, like we were kind of saying, generally gives you best pricing. Booking direct, a lot of times people are like, oh, this it's on Expedia, or it's on one of these OTAs, an online travel agency. And you might be comparing pricing based on the hotel website or something. There's often hidden fees, associated with an OTA booking. So your best bet, your best, chances for upgrades and better room allocation is booking direct with the property. I do think cruises offer a good value in terms of your accommodations. Some of them include activities, and then your transportation point to point, all in one place, is also good value. And then it's kind of silly, but there are different windows where hotels will discount, like a Cyber Week or something.
Speaking of silly, how are the White Lotus destinations doing?
Oh my God, they're
Thailand,
hot.
Italy.
Right? That's not silly at all.
No, it's so hot. The White Lotus effect is a real thing, and we also see it. It's that's probably the most prominent example, but a lot of these other. Set jet. So it's a movie set that people then kind of want to flock to. So we've seen this with Ischia. There was I think an HBO show that was filmed there. So the White Lotus is the biggest example. Yes, whenever it comes out, then those hotels do jump up in price. The
If
demand is
so
there.
if you're Ernie, could you consult with a person like you and say, okay, I'm going to go for a drink at the White Lotus Hotel,
100%.
but I need to stay at the senior hotel that those women left.
Oh my God.
Let's get a little chippy in here.
No, it's the full picture. Where you stay and what you're close to and where you have your aperitivo, where you take your photos. It all plays into it.
I would think a travel agent is important because you know the landscape in which you're moving into. And I mean that if you talk about cruising, for example. You folks would probably have your finger on the pulse of when are the best rates, when are the worst rates, when are there going to be kids on the ship, when aren't there?
Yes.
And also, I believe you may have access to different pricing because you move in bigger blocks of things. Is that still true?
Yes, often we do have access to better pricing, and there are things like blocks on river cruises and ocean cruises. We generally, because we work so closely with the hotels, we're able to just, we know the teams, the management. It's not just a website, right? It's the people who are working there. So upgrades and amenities and value adds. But when it comes down to it, it's less about, we'll say 5% here or there with a discount. And it's more about, okay, breakfast is $80 a day. Let's get that included. We got round trip airport transfers or something. So we certainly add a lot of value in that way, but then we know the properties and we know the people at the properties, and it's our job to match make.
Yeah. There's a new service internationally, VIP services at airports.
Yes.
So when you land, they'll take you by the hand and lead you to customs. And I haven't done it. I've just seen it. But you recommend it?
Once you do it, you never go back.
Careful.
They even have it to where they'll pick you up on the tarmac in a golf cart or a Mercedes. It depends on if you're in the Caribbean or Paris.
I'm the golf cart. He's the Mercedes.
And then they whisk you through back doors and bring you a cappuccino while your passport's stamped.
That's the way I like to travel.
Yeah.
We did also have a YouTube comment here from this person who says agents can be a huge help on foreign logistics support, and they often don't charge for the service. Is that right? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So different agents and advisors have different pricing models. So that's always a good question to ask up front. In general, advisors are compensated in part from hotel commission. So just like an Expedia, an online travel agency, generally our pricing is the same, if not better, than what clients are seeing just on the hotel website direct. Plus, we have added amenities. So dollar for dollar, it is generally, I would say 95% always better to get more value from an advisor, plus all of their expertise and connections. But that being said, all trips are different, right? So if you tell me we want to go for a weekend away in New York, that might be not as much time on our end in terms of, okay, let's find the right hotel, the right price, get you booked, you're all set. If we're doing, a 2 or 3 week international trip with 4 European countries, logistics, cars, planes, boats, everything, then we have planning fees. So often there are upfront consulting fees based on how complicated and how much time is involved in the planning.
And if somebody would like to learn and get your contact information, where can people find out more about your agency?
Yeah. KJTravel.com is our website. We're on Instagram at KJ Travel Agency. And we love talking about all of this stuff all day long.
Kate Johnson is a Houston-based travel advisor. Kate, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Loved all the questions.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll be talking about a summer reading program hosted right here by the Houston Public Library. Stay with us as News 88.7 continues.
What you hear on this station, every report, every interview, every update, is only here because someone like you gave.
80% of Houston Public Media's funding comes from Houstonians like you. Our newsroom runs on support from you, our community.
You have the right to know what's going on, and you have the power to make sure others do too.
Join the community right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Clean electricity, advanced batteries, and electric vehicles. Republicans are taking aim at Biden-era tax credits meant to boost these industries. It's part of their big domestic policy bill currently in the Senate. If they do cut these supports, what could that mean for the country's efforts to decarbonize and build an advanced manufacturing sector? The GOP's changes to the clean energy economy. That's next time on 1A.
It's coming up this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Elevate your impact with Houston Public Media. Today is New Member Monday. Now is the perfect moment to make a difference by becoming a new member. Your first donation supports trusted news, educational documentaries, and enriching arts on air. Join us in our mission to inform, educate, and inspire Houston. Visit houstonpublicmedia.org/donate and make your first contribution today. Together, let's shape a future filled with quality programming and community engagement. Thank you for being a vital part of Houston Public Media.
Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with the generous support from our founding sponsor, Kathy Sanders.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, presenting John Williams and Steven Spielberg Movie Magic, featuring movie themes from Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, and more. This weekend, tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
As of yesterday, the Houston Public Library's annual summer reading program has officially begun and will run through July 31st. The initiative encourages children, teens, and families to explore stories, creativity, and culture through reading and events including author visits, performances, story times, and much more. Joining us now to tell us more about the summer reading program is LaTrisha Milton, Youth and Family Services Manager for Houston Public Library. LaTrisha, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
So what is the theme of this year's summer reading program?
Yeah, so this year's theme is Color Our World. However you want to interpret that, you can interpret it in however you want, which is the beauty of summer reading.
Yeah. Sounds kind of DEI is the way I interpret it.
Yeah.
Well, LaTrisha, as we're looking at different programs, and we hear so much in the news of things being pulled back, here you all are providing a service, and this is completely free, is that right?
Yes.
And so if somebody wants to get involved, where should they go to be a part of this?
Yeah, so you should visit our website, houstonlibrary.org. As soon as you get onto the website, you're going to see the big, beautiful banner. You can click that banner and go to our platform, Beanstack, where you can sign up individually or as a family to participate in summer reading. And once you're signed up, you can come to all the programs. You can start reading all the books. Just make sure you're logging everything you're reading because you have an opportunity to get tickets towards big prizes all summer long.
So there is a little reward and incentive to
Yeah.
read.
Yes.
We used to get a nickel for every book we read.
We used to get
during summer.
Peter Piper Pizza. Do y'all remember? Not Peter Piper, Pizza Hut used to do the Pizza Hut, the book it.
So what's the crowd like? Are you getting pretty good feedback and pretty good participation?
Yeah, so as of May 16th, we opened up registration so people could sign up. Just before I came here, our numbers were over 3,000. So we have over 3,000 that have already signed up, which is always exciting because people want to win prizes, of course. But I think this is also a part of families' regular summer experience that they participate in summer reading. So it's always a great time.
So I was going to say, what kind of family event? I mean, describe.
What is the experience?
Yeah, so we have paid performers that come. We have magicians. We have animals that come out that you can have the petting zoo at your library. And then we have like the puppeteers and balloon artists. It's all kinds of performers that we invite to come out along with our regular programming that our library staff hosts every day throughout the summer. So you have your pick. Yeah.
But that sounds very loud to me. I feel like libraries are supposed to
you're
be.
in such an old world, Celeste. The library is a vibrant learning center.
Yes,
now.
tell her.
I try to every day. She don't listen.
You know, when I MC and I can't get everybody to be quiet, I go shh, 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 and everybody, because of libraries, because we all grew up with those libraries.
But that's the old model of the library, guys.
I MC old events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, now library is the community center and should be, and it's full of, like you said, petting zoos and magicians and excitement and education and learning and fun.
Yeah.
And I know that this program is in place because of the summer slide, and you don't want kids to slip back in. So from an education point of view, how do you structure this program out to make sure that we are helping keep our kids kids moving forward and our community during summer months?
Yeah, that's an important point that you made. One of the things that we strive to do is to make it not feel like school, where it's just reading. And so that's why we integrate the programming into the reading experience. So every program that they participate in, and this includes adults can participate in summer reading as well.
I like that.
But every program that we produce or we execute at our locations, we make sure to remind our families, hey, make sure you're still reading. There's prizes that you can win throughout the summer. The prize part is really what encourages everybody to continue to read.
All too often, I feel that these kind of programs are structured by class ranking or age ranking as opposed to by learning level. How do you folks balance that out?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of having different types of books. We also strive to encourage everyone that you don't have to just read chapter books. If your reading level is that of a lower level book, you can read that book and it still counts. For kids under 4, they're counting the actual books read. Their parents are reading to them. But once you get over that age, we're counting minutes. So we try to make it less intimidating by encouraging just some time reading. You don't have to read an entire book in one sitting. You don't have to read so many pages. All we're asking for is about 30 minutes of a little time spent out each day to read. And so that it could look like a magazine. It could be a graphic novel. It could be a chapter book, as long as you're reading something.
What advice do you give to parents and to communities that takes away the idea of reading as a cumbersome, in some kids torturous, when they could watch a movie or play a video game? How do you help give a message to parents and educators that these are fun activities too? What do you do?
Yeah, well, we want to make it relaxed. You know, anytime you come into the library, of course, public libraries, people automatically equate us with the holder of all books.
All knowledge.
All knowledge, and we have all things, and you must read when you come in. Again, this is why we try to integrate those programs. If we can have a petting zoo and we pull out some books about some of those animals to show kids, it doesn't always have to be, you know, you don't always have to read something where you're learning something. But maybe if you're reading something where you're learning something that you're interested in, that might entice you more to read more things out of curiosity as opposed to out of assignment and someone telling you have to do that.
So truly bringing back almost a love for reading just to read.
Yes.
Not because you have to, not because you have to hit or learn something. And I love that, because I feel like as we look at in our education space, so many parents are disenfranchised by the lack of libraries, or our librarians and our libraries are shutting down. And it's really disheartening to hear about a program that is free, that it is just teaching our children how to love being in a space that is full of books. To me is actually really quite exciting.
Yes.
Sounds like it.
How do you reach out to it? In our community, there's a lot of illiteracy, and there's a lot of parents who have children. The parents are illiterate. How do you reach out to them so that maybe they missed the boat, but to get the children in? Is there a force that you work with to do that?
Yeah, so we also have an outreach community engagement team that's constantly out in the community to make people aware of what the library offers, who we are, what we do. This is also why we try to bring in authors into the city. And so sometimes those authors will come here and they'll say, we're the ones that you really don't see all the time. We're the ones that don't want to read or say they're not readers. A lot of times we try to reach out in those communities to bring them into our spaces so they can get this experience. And sometimes when you hear from these authors, their stories are just like theirs. They weren't readers as kids, and something happened that made them then turn to books.
You know, I have friends that just swear by audiobooks. It's like all they do.
Yeah.
Now, is that part of your genre also?
Absolutely. Yeah, on our
Ernie
flyers.
acts like he lives at the library.
Oh my God, I am such a library geek.
Are you an audio geek?
Yes, and an audio geek. Growing up, every Saturday, my mom would take me to the public library in Binghamton, New York, and she would sit down somewhere and read and I would run through those aisles and I would pull books, and I was fascinated. And we would take I would barely rarely read them. But oh my God, I would take out a stack of books. We had to cart around for a week until we could take them back. I love libraries.
And these are the stories that we love. These are the stories that kind of build on who we are.
So do audiobooks sometimes get those kids interested in actually reading a book?
Absolutely. And audiobooks have come a long way, because I remember back in the day, it was a boring narrator, no inflection in their voice. Now they're full cast in some of these audiobooks. And so
and the
that's
media
another way
you have available.
Yes.
You can get DVDs. You can get, I don't know if people use DVDs or CDs anymore, but you have apps on like Roku's and stuff where you use your library card to access those libraries.
You still have a library card, or can you just show it on your phone?
You need to have a library card.
I have mine.
Yeah, and you can have it on your phone as long as the barcode is available to scan. And like he said, you can come into the library, get books. You can get audiobooks, DVDs, whatever you want. But if you can't get to your library, you can also go on the website and visit some of our databases, which gives you access to books,
Wonderful.
movies, all the things.
We're just about out of time. Really quick question, though. Do you have any kind of statistics to say people who get involved in these summer programs, how many of them return to the library after that fact?
Oh, yeah. So anyone who participates in summer reading, I don't have the exact number, but the majority of the people that visit us during the summer and see what we have to offer absolutely return later in the year to participate in.
To find out the information, go where?
Go to HoustonLibrary.org.
LaTrisha Milton is the Youth and Family Services Manager for Houston Public Library. LaTrisha, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Houston Public Library's annual summer reading program is running now through July 31st. And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening and engaging with Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public.
Support comes from School of the Woods, founded in 1962, offering Montessori education from early childhood through grade 12. Enrollment is now open. More info at schoolofthewoods.org.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
From NPR and WBUR Boston, I'm Asma Khalid. I'm Robin Young.